What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we've got some new Destiny 2 Forsaken news to talk about. So even outside of E3, we're still getting a few new interviews crop up, plenty of new tidbits of information. So in this video we're going to talk about everyone's favourite. We've got the Sony exclusives. There will be more in the Forsaken DLC. On top of this though, some of the older stuff is going to become available and I have the details on that. We're going to talk about a reworked Milestone system that we'll be seeing in the update in September. We've got words and hints about new and returning characters, some of the potential story and lore right there. On top of this, a new exotic quest that we'll get in the Forsaken DLC, more clarification about weapon slot changes, some of the possibilities and which weapons you can actually use where. And on top of this, we've got some more stuff about the endgame loop, progression, and a bunch of other things as always. So if you guys do enjoy this video, as I always say, a like is super appreciated down below. You've been absolutely killing it with the support on the channel, and it really does make a big difference here on YouTube, so I super appreciate that. But without further delay, let's jump into the video. So first up, I mentioned PlayStation exclusives. There's always mixed opinions and feedback when it comes to exclusive content on a particular platform, of course. We kind of expect this to happen now. Destiny has had PS4 exclusives ever since it launched. And with the Forsaken DLC, there will be some new stuff as well. So there is a PlayStation 4 exclusive strike. On top of this though, there will be 3 other strikes available on all platforms. But for PlayStation specifically, there'll also be a new exotic weapon, something brand new that we haven't seen yet. This hasn't been revealed whatsoever, but you'll also be able to get a jump ship, which is probably going to be pretty standard, and a new gear set per class. So all of that stuff is coming specifically to PlayStation with the Forsaken DLC. Of course, there are separate pre-order bonuses as well, where you can get the Ace of Spades hand cannon ornament. However, if you are a PC or Xbox player right now, we will be getting a bunch of the exclusive content for PS4 added in September. So going back to vanilla Destiny 2, we have the Lake of Shadows strike. This is the kind of taken strike in the European Dead Zone. There's also the City Apex jump ship, which is a pretty standard ship. Much more exciting though is the Borealis exotic sniper rifle. This will become available on all of the platforms, and it's actually a pretty good one because of course it saw a fairly major buff back in May with the Warmind expansion. On top of this, there is also the catalyst for that weapon, which I'm sure will become available. And then there is also the Crucible map Retribution, which takes place on a Cabal ship over Mars. So all of that stuff will become available. But on top of this, Curse of Osiris Wormhaven map that was added, and the Vex and Cabal strike from Warmind will be added as well. So there's a couple of new strikes right there, of course the exotic sniper, and a couple of Crucible maps too. All of this is coming to Xbox and PC finally on September the 4th. And I'm guessing the other exclusives for Forsaken will roll through to 2019. But let me know your thoughts on that stuff. Like I said, there are always mixed opinions about exclusives. I'm not the biggest fan of it. And we'll probably get a reveal of that as well. Generally, I think there is a PlayStation trailer that they roll out, which will show the weapon and all of the different kind of content you can get. So if you are a PlayStation player, stay tuned for more details on that stuff. Moving away from exclusive content though, The Sun actually did an interview with Lars Bakken, and there's a bunch of interesting conversation about Gambit, the new story, and some of the systems that we'll see. Most of it we've heard about, but off the record, The Sun said while Lars isn't making any promises, we can expect things like the flashpoints to change when the new daily, weekly, and monthly goal system is introduced with Forsaken. So they clearly spoke about some new progression systems that we'll see on a week-to-week basis. I mean, it's no huge surprise, but it looks like that Milestone system is going to see some kind of rework. I think that's definitely positive, you know, it's kind of tying together the challenges that we had along with the milestones, and I'm really hoping it will make it a less kind of one and done type of thing, you know, while you're still doing milestones, that feels like the major point of progression that you have in Destiny, but then once you're done, or even once you've hit max level, they just become very kind of stale and boring. But considering we're getting bounties, we're getting reputation, we're getting randomization on pieces of gear, the new goals system could actually be a significantly improved version of what we saw with milestones. So that sounds pretty exciting. But up next we have an interview from Eurogamer with Scott Taylor and Chris Barrett from Bungie. I spoke about Variks before, but Eurogamer asked, this is about Prison of Elders, is Variks going to be in the story? Of course, Prison of Elders does feature in the story, and in the opening sequence to the game you're kind of running through that space during the prison break with Cade. But Scott Taylor says Variks will have a role to play, it's probably not what you expect. So I'm really looking forward to see how Variks will feature in the story. The way he says he has a role means that he's not simply going to be referenced he's actually going to be somewhat significant at some point. On top of this though, we have seen other fallen NPCs. We see this captain, which is very clearly speaking to the player. I believe he says, "That's right, my friend," in a cool kind of captain-y voice. I'm really excited to finally get some of this kind of multi-race interaction happening in Destiny. There was always a very interesting part of the Awoken and the Reef. You know, you have Varix, you have the Awoken who essentially had a fallen house working for them. And even now you've got Prince Aldrin kind of doing a similar thing, but in a different fashion. I'm going to talk about that just in a moment. They do ask about the Queen though, as many people have, pushing for an answer about the Queen. And the answer they get is that you're going back to the Reef, learning the backstory about the Awoken. The Dreaming City itself is a place that's super important to the Awoken, so there's a ton of very interesting stories that will unfold about the Reef and the Awoken and that backstory. And so I wanted to talk about a few interesting things to do with the potential story here and some characters. If you go back to Prince Aldrin in the Reef Grimoire card for Destiny 1, the Reef 4 card actually refers to him evading his own people, the Awoken at the Reef. There are also records of Aldrin amassing soldiers for an unknown purpose on behalf of an unknown female character, and this was after the death of Morosov. So there was plenty of speculation, of course, that it could be Morosov he's actually still working for. That wouldn't be completely ridiculous. But there was also speculation about something much darker, the potential that he could actually be working with someone or being influenced by somebody like Savathun. It may sound potentially far-fetched, but if you look at somewhere like the Dreaming City, this is the Awoken homeland, it's full of palaces and things like that, yet there is a significant Taken presence in this space. We see both Taken enemies, but also Taken and Hive magic going on in the depths of the Dreaming City, and that just does not gel with the Awoken themselves, you know? Ultimately, Oryx was the one who destroyed the Queen, so these guys have no reason to be friends, and so it's obviously going to feature into what's happening with the Awoken. On top of this though, we have seen a secret NPC character in some concept art. Some people speculated this was indeed the Queen. I believe this is actually a male character, but in terms of who this character could actually be, we do see the Awoken guard symbol on their cloak, and they're clearly a very kind of regal, high-up character. And so it's very likely that this could actually be one of the Awoken Paladins. The Paladins are kind of the highest military commanders in the Reef for the Awoken. They command both the Royal Army and the Royal Awoken Guard, and there are various Paladins, Paladin Abrazir, Paladin Hallam Fen, and before those, Imogen Rife, who, if you remember back to House of Wolves, there was actually a shader called Imogen's Fire, and this was referenced to that character, who actually died and was replaced by one of the other Paladins. And so considering Aldrin has gone mad, but we know we're going to be working with Petra in this expansion too, so there's clearly a lot of disruption in the Awoken and they're kind of split, and so the introduction of a Paladin, this character that we're seeing right here, could actually point towards the potential future leadership or rebuilding of the Awoken post whatever happens to Prince Aldrin in the campaign for Forsaken. So lots of speculation, but the character we've seen actually being an Awoken Paladin does seem pretty likely. But back to the Eurogamer interview, they ask, now that Cade is dead, will Hunters get a replacement Hunter Vanguard character? Scott Taylor said Cade is gone, there won't instantly be a new Vanguard. Chris Barrett says there is an interesting story to explore. How do Ikora and Zavala take Cade's death? That's going to be something that unfolds as part of this story. But of course, if Cade is going to be gone in the long term, then presumably we will need a replacement for the Vanguard. There have been some interesting characters that we know of. Some people have speculated maybe Anna Bray could actually feature as a Vanguard. Of course, she is both a hunter and a pretty experienced one, a fairly interesting character in general. But also a thought I had, a potential character could even be someone like Petra Venge. We know that she's back in this expansion. She's working with us, the Guardian, so we're clearly still allied. And as far as Awoken go, Petra is our #1 ally historically. And as I spoke about a moment ago with that disruption with the Awoken, something like this isn't necessarily that far-fetched. So I'm very excited for the story that we'll get. I think there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of potential for stuff that we really didn't expect to happen. I mean, as we've seen so far, the death of Cade, that was something that not many people would really anticipate was going to be a thing. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts about that, guys. But there was also a reference to the exotic Gambit weapon that we'll be seeing. Scott Taylor had previously mentioned that this was visible in the Gambit trailer, and we now know that it is going to be a quest reward inside of the Forsaken expansion. And of course, we've spoken about this a bit. It's the weapon that looks a lot like the Thorn. Loads of different possibilities and opinions about this one. You know, it's Thorn with an ornament. It's not Thorn at all. It's a weapon that's influenced by the Thorn. I personally believe it is a weapon linked to the Thorn in some way. I just feel like with something like this, Bungie would want to do something more interesting because it's a quest associated with Gambit. But there are more links to how Thorn works there, because of course, to actually upgrade the Thorn in Destiny 1 or to access the weapon, you had to get kills with Void on Guardians in the Crucible. And of course, in the Gambit mode, you can actually kill Guardians. But interestingly enough, the vendor for Gambit, when you're actually making kills or attempting to make kills on players in Gambit, will sometimes say embrace the darkness as you go through the Taken portal into the other arena. So obviously there are quite a few links there, because Thorn is a darkness weapon and it was fueled by consuming the light, the energy of other Guardians in the Crucible. So it seems like there's going to be a new interaction going on here. You've got that darkness element where the weapon is still potentially eating the light of other Guardians in the Gambit mode, but also the fact that it appears to be a Taken weapon. The Gambit NPC refers to the darkness. So yeah, it all kind of makes a little bit of sense for this to be Thorn or a related weapon, maybe one which starts out as a Thorn but actually becomes something even darker, or related in some way to a different version of the darkness. Pretty interesting stuff, but it will be a quest weapon earned via Gambit in one way or another. You probably have to reach a certain threshold of progression in Gambit in order to start that quest. But Eurogamer did ask about the weapon slot system. Can you now have any weapon in any slot? And there's some good clarification right here. So Scott Taylor says not quite. No rockets in the primary, no grenade launchers in the primary or secondary, but shotguns, fusion rifles and snipers can all be in the primary and secondary slot as well, and occasionally in the heavy slot. Chris Barrett adds the heavy slot is for swords, rocket launchers and grenade launchers, as well as the occasional shotgun, such as the really powerful or exotic shotguns. So that's confirmation, Legend of Acreus, things like that will stay in that slot. But also from what Scott said, the potential for snipers to be found in that slot as well. It could be reference to some of the DPS snipers, you know, Darcy. There are other ones like Black Spindle, which is going to return at some point. So essentially a lot of the very powerful exotic heavies, Sleeper Simulant, Legend of Acreus, they're still going to be heavies. But on the subject of random rolls, the weapon changes, all of these systems that Bungie haven't really explained too much, Josh Hamrick has said he promises we're going to get more information soon, very specific details alongside a ton of additional Forsaken information. So it sounds like Bungie have more reveals planned for pretty soon. Some of the more technical stuff may be done in developer commentaries and inside of the Bungie blog. So I'll keep you guys posted. I don't think we're going to have to wait too long. But guys, that is going to summarize this video. Lots of interesting stuff once again. Let me know your thoughts on the PlayStation exclusives, the new quest, and potentially what that Thorn weapon is, what its link to the Thorn must be. I'll keep you guys posted on the other news, but if you have any thoughts on the stuff in this video, like I said, let me know down below. If you've enjoyed it, a like is very much appreciated. I appreciate you guys watching as always. If you want to see more Destiny content and you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But for now, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have an awesome day.